Good morning, folks. Welcome to Half and Half this morning. Happy to be here today. Bitty Cat has found her way onto the chair and onto the windowsill. It's a new skill. So she's working on her cat mature skills, sitting and staring out the window. It's a good mature cat skill there. We are going to do a little bit of work on the spine today. We've been doing strength and flow series. And Pilates is super focused on the spine, especially the forward action of flexion, which is one of the actions. We've got these 4 actions. We've also got lateral flexion, which is side bending, rotation, which is twisting, and then extension movement, which is back bending through there. So this is one of the core principles of Pilates, and certainly in yoga, there's a lot of focus on the spine as well. The 5th action slash position or non-action that I also like to talk about is neutral position of the spine. So that if we find neutral position and strengthen neutral position of the spine, then that's really helpful for anything that has to do with posture, sitting, standing, walking, running, biking, swimming, all those things. Your posture is sort of a part of where your neutral is, right? Like how you hold your core together. So we often talk about core strength. And a lot of the benefit of core strength has to do with having nice, strong, clean, clear postural muscles so that everything else moves and it has support as it moves, and stability as it moves and doesn't get pulled off center. So we'll kind of hit all those things today. I'll see if I can hit all those actions as we go through our movements this morning. So let's start on your back. Knees bent, feet flat. And this is how we start to find neutral, right? It's just to use the floor to create neutral. When you're standing up, you're having to work against gravity. There's all sorts of other things going on. Sometimes you don't just immediately go into a neutral position. Sometimes you end up kind of slouched or arched. You go to the floor and you just use the floor and you use gravity to set yourself up in that neutral position. So we've got weight in your head, weight in your upper back, in between your shoulder blades, kind of the back of the rib cage, and then weight in your pelvis. And in an anatomically neutral spine, those 3 things would line up on the floor. And then your lower back and your neck, there'd be a little bit of lightness, a little bit of space. Now, because of tightness and a lot of sitting, sometimes for some of us, as you lie on the mat, you feel more weight in your lower back than you do in your pelvis, right? You maybe feel most relaxed when you're in kind of a tuck. And if that's the case for you, just see what it's like to just kind of nudge your pelvis down into the floor. Don't force it into the floor. Don't need to create extra tension to do it. But like if you think of these hip inner thigh muscles like pulling your pelvis up, it's like you just kind of let them go. And you let the pubic bone and the pelvis and the sits bones all get to just kind of settle into the floor. And as that happens, then maybe there's a little bit of lift in the lower back, but you're not trying to lift it. You're not like tightening your back to lift it. You're just allowing the pelvis to relax a little and not pushing the back down. And then just see what that's like. You still might feel like, there's more weight in my back than my pelvis. It's okay. You're just kind of like relaxing towards that neutral a little more. And then second thing that happens is sometimes as the pelvis gets into neutral, there's a pull on the rib cage. And sometimes people's rib cage, lower ribs sort of pop up as their pelvis comes into place. So then there's some tightness in the mid back there when that's happening. And the psoas muscle, if you know that muscle. Maybe the breath isn't moving as freely and the back of the diaphragm is a little funky. So then as you have that weight in the pelvis, see what it's like to exhale. And same thing, right? If muscles are kind of holding the rib cage up, it's like you just kind of let them go and see if the rib cage will soften down, feel the back of the ribs a little more. And notice if your neck can relax to do that as well. Your chest could relax. And then this breathing we often do, inhaling wide through the ribs, exhale, ribs draw together in the front. And now there's a little bit of abdominal support. Now we're getting into how the muscles work to support this postural position. Exhale, the ribs draw towards each other and a little down to the mat. As the pelvis stays steady, kind of a deep low belly tone. Working the abdominal muscles for postural support in this particular way. And then checking back in with your head, your neck, your shoulders, feeling weighted and heavy as well. Sometimes it's helpful to put a small book or blanket under your head. That actually makes your head feel a little more relaxed if your neck's pretty tight. That'd be just fine too as you work in the neutral spine positions. And then from here, we're going to take your arms up to the ceiling. Try and help feel all those things. We're going to go into knee folds. Inhale, one leg folds up. Exhale, lower down. The goal being to stabilize your neutral posture from your deep abdominals and your breath. Inhale, a leg floats up. And exhale, floating back down. And I like to just let my awareness wander a little bit. Sometimes when I exhale, I think about the lower belly tone holding the pelvis. Sometimes I might inhale and think of the back ribs opening, and to exhale, feel the ribs closing. And then I might do a little check-in with my neck. So all those things, instead of trying to make sure everything's perfect every time, just choose one thing. And then as that feels pretty good, I might check on another thing. And then let's take the second version where you take one knee in on the inhale, you hold it there, deep abdominal work to exhale the second leg up. And then inhale, lower, and exhale. Really try not to tip the pelvis back into that lower back pushing in the mat position. So just one leg up, exhale, ribs, belly. Just leave the pelvis where it is as your second leg comes up. First leg down, second leg down. We'll take that pattern a couple times. Inhale, exhale. And I like to really take my time to get the second leg off because it just feels like I need that real clear support. And then I can hold things steady. And one more each side. And then taking your arms down. Take your left leg straight down on the mat. We're going to keep that same sense of keeping the neutral position. As your leg straightens, maybe it's a little easier to feel weight in your pelvis. I find it's easier to feel my pelvis weighted. So check in there. But it's also harder for my ribs to stay down. So I'm going to check back in with that, keeping my ribs kind of dropping in. Abdominal support, just like you did in the knee fold a moment ago, keep your support as the right leg comes up. Now we're going to unfold your knee. Inhale, extending up, exhale, bending. And the leg movement is mostly just about challenging the stability in the core, right? You don't need to stretch your hamstring here. You probably can't stretch it much by doing this just because muscles have to work so much. Unfolding, folding. Maybe there's some quad work, but mostly trying to feel that deep abdominal work. Might make you sneeze. Made me sneeze. And then the next time the leg is up, we're going to leave it up for a moment. Again, not super straight. If it starts to feel like a lot of hip and a lot of quad, that's not totally what we're going for. So bend it a little, breathe through your center, through your stable, neutral position. And then bend your knee and take your leg down and relax everything. Opposite knee bend. Find your pelvis, find your ribs, relax your upper back, your neck, your head, using your abdominals to fold your left knee over your hip. And then we start unfolding your knee towards the ceiling, extend, and back down. Inhale, opening your back ribs. Exhale, a little more tone through your center, your abdominal wall. Optional sneeze on this side. I'm not going to do the sneeze this time. And then taking the leg up, holding the leg there, practicing breathing through your back ribs, your side ribs, exhaling, a little more tone in your abdominals. And then bending your leg. Take that leg down. Really simple postural exercise you could do right there. Maybe that goes into your morning routine if you're looking for something new. I know I'm always looking for like something a little new to add. Let's go over onto your hands and knees. Hands under your shoulders, knees under your hips, back to neutral spine in this position. Now I'm starting to work just a little bit against gravity to be in neutral, right? So my pelvis sometimes wants to sag, my rib cage wants to sag, my shoulders want to sag, my head wants to sag, all those things. So just like you had the head against the floor, the upper back against the floor, and I actually push my hands into the floor, and that helps me feel my upper back open a little bit. Ribs connected in the front. And then on this one, I find I really want to tuck my pelvis. When I do all those other things, I really tend to tuck my pelvis. So then it's tricky, but doable to move just the pelvis so the tail is a little more up, still feeling length in your lower back, right? Not gripping your lower back to do it. Some support from your abdominals and still rib connection in the front. Figuring out that neutral position, whatever that is for you. Open back of the neck. And then we're going to take opposite arm and leg movement. So I'm going to take my right leg back and my left arm forward. And then bring it all back in. Now, again, not really about your arm and your leg. Your arm and your leg are like the weight. The exercise focus is your center. So find neutral, hold neutral, and then trying to keep your spine as it is. Where does your arm and leg go? Mine does not go very high. And if it goes above your pelvis, if your leg goes above your pelvis, you're definitely not going to be in neutral anymore. Your spine's going to have to start to shift. So in this case, lower is often a little better. Just think about out, trying to keep that nice neutral connected abdominal support. Makes me feel my hamstrings, but that's, what it makes me feel. Might make you feel something a little different. I'm really going for the abdominal tone to hold it. And not a lot of shifting side to side as you switch each time. Just leave your torso where it is. And maybe you take your time to switch so that you can do that, right? If you go too quickly, you just kind of glaze over it. And then back to hands and knees. We'll sit back over your heels for a second, take some pressure off your hands, your wrist. Good opportunity to inhale through your back for a moment. Feel your back ribs. And then we'll come forward onto your hands and knees again, and we'll start going into flexion, the round position of the spine that I was talking about. So a lot of times when we do this position on hands and knees in yoga classes, I know when I would take yoga classes, I would really focus on a big stretch and getting as round as possible and like this really super tight curl, but not necessarily any support from my abdominals as I do it. I'd really focus on how I stretch the back. So sometimes in Pilates, I like to talk about it being more of a mini cat or like a very long cat. So instead of trying to get that big curve, I'm going to do ribs, abdominals, and really slowly work to feel my abdominals move my spine. And I think of like an early sunrise picture, right? That's just a little bit of sun peeking over the horizon, just starting to peek out. That's the kind of curve I'm making in my spine. Very long and supported from my abdominals, creating a little more length forward and back, and then back to neutral. So play with that movement a little bit. Just see what it feels like to feel like you're stretching long ways as you create that roundness and supporting from your belly, your navel, your ribs, long back of the neck, and even long tailbone, right? Like I'm not tightening and tucking my tailbone. I'm sort of reaching my tail way back behind me, stretching it back. One more of these. And then we'll come to sitting. All right, so in sitting, again, get this question a lot in Pilates. Why are we doing all this stuff rounding the spine? I'm like this all the time. I don't want to do this anymore, right? So we're definitely not going for this position. We want this sense of length, and just like we did on your hands and knees, round, but almost stretching your spine as you round it, letting it get longer. If you had a slinky and you just let it drop down, all that space in between the little slinky rings, right? That space in between your vertebrae as you round your spine. Definitely curling the tail, drawing the belly in, navel in, ribs, back of the neck long, reaching forward. We're going to start our roll down, and you take your version. If you want to roll all the way down, if you want to roll halfway down, if you want to hold on to your legs. So all things we've done in class. Working your way to the bottom and either pausing halfway for your exhale and your next inhale, and then the exhale coming back up. So if you're going all the way down, you end up moving the whole time. If you're going halfway down, you have a little pause while you hold that halfway position and take another exhale, inhale there. So now not only are we working through flexion, we're articulating the vertebra one joint at a time. So we're actually working through flexion and extending the spine into neutral, not into the full back bend. But as I roll down that articulation, one vertebra at a time is an extension type movement that puts me in neutral as I get to the bottom. I'll roll through that long flexion. And we're going to take two more of these, whichever version you're using. And really observing your whole spine. One more time, down and up. And then coming up to the top. All right, let's try some lateral flexion, which is side bending. So you're going to come onto one side. If you're mirroring me, you can be on your left side. We're going to take your left arm straight out. I have my whole torso lined up with the back of my mat. And then my legs, I just have a little bit forward and my knees a little bit, just kind of relax through there. Now I'm going to go hand behind my head. So your right hand behind your head here. Now don't take the elbow too far behind you. If you take your elbow too far behind you, you've got that rib pushing forward thing happening again, right? Maybe a little too much arch in the spine. So as we start, even though you're on your side, you're going to try to start in neutral. Another great thing about neutral is you want to start your motions from a neutral place to get the healthiest motion. So ribs in, pelvis not tucked, not arched, just kind of relaxing around your inner thighs and your pubic bone, your tailbone, and then that rib connection, belly connection here. Now I'm going to think long. I use this right hand to just create a little length through the head and the neck. And then just a little side bending, right? Head, neck, shoulders aren't even coming off the mat here. Just kind of testing that out. Maybe it's your neck muscles coming on a little to help you create a little length through there. This bottom arm, maybe pressing a little, but not too much there. Hopefully not in your hips to do it or your low back to do it. And then I'm going to take this right hand and put it on the floor. Now I'm going to be able to come up a little higher. So we'll do another round. Inhale, lengthen out the spine. Push the hand now, and you can make it up a little higher through the ribs in lateral flexion and come down. But up to you which version you want to do and how high you want to come. Again, just thinking, articulating one vertebra at a time and working through the side bend up and down. Long, right? Horizon, sunrise, long type curve, not crunchy, right? And back down. Two more. And last one. And down. Pressing up to sitting. We're going to go right into the other side. Right side, right arm long. Legs a little forward. And knees a little soft. Head down. Relaxing around your inner thighs, pubic bone not pulling. Hips, tailbone not pulling. Ribs, draw them in a little bit. Right? Wrapping that in just a little bit. Left hand behind your head. So really just starting with that very upper spine, the cervical spine. I'm going to think just a little longer, not tense in my neck, but just a little length. And then reach out, back down. This is one we do a lot with gravity, but not against gravity. So when I'm standing, maybe I take my head side to side. Gravity is helping me do this. But here, lying on my side, gravity, I'm having to work against it. So the strength aspect. Now I'm going to take my hand down and get a little more range, probably pushing into the hand, coming up, and then sliding back down. However far feels comfortable, drawing the ribs in to help you. Take a few more of these. Inhale to start. Relaxing around your hips one more time. And then coming up to sitting. All right, so for our last one, Let's take a standing exercise, an exercise called the saw that we often do sitting. I've been kind of having fun with the standing saw lately. It's a very classic Joe Pilates type exercise. So find your way up to standing. And then we're going to set up with your feet a little wider than your hips. So you just have kind of a wide base there. Now, last sort of movement we're working with is rotation, right? We're gonna have to let Scott do extension because we didn't get a ton of extension in, but I bet he'll get some in. So working on rotation, let's start just with hands behind your head. Again, I want to start in a pretty neutral position. So if my hands go behind my head and my ribs shoot straight out, that's not so great. If I draw my ribs in and then my pelvis pushes forward, not quite it either. So as best you can, feeling like you had the floor, the wall behind you maybe, right? And you find your ribs connected, find your relaxed pelvis, let your head flow back into your hands. And then from that position, let's start the rotation, head, neck, ribs, a little bit through the waist, and then back to center. So my lower body is really steady. I use the lower abdominals to hold my pelvis in neutral as the upper body is creating that rotation. My oblique muscles are helping me do that. Now, last one, back to center. So now we're going to take, I'm watching my lovely dear Scott play with a light that is not working right now. And I'm going to let him know that the battery stopped on one of the lights. So I think I'm still lit well enough. So now we're going to add in the saw part of the exercise, which adds some flexion into it. So arms are going to go out. I'm going to rotate around to the right. I'm going to take my left hand towards my right foot as I flex the spine and roll forward. And my back arm's going to reach up and back towards the ceiling. My palm of my hand is going to high five the screen behind me, right? Palm of my hand towards the screen. And then roll up and back to center. So we take the rotation the other way, right rotation, or sorry, left rotation if you're mirroring me, and then right hand towards the left foot as I roll through the spine down. And then I try to do that unrolling the spine to come up and back to center. So it's not just hand to foot, it's spine. Rolling through the spine and my arm just follows. My other arm reaches up and back. And then tailbone through the lower back, through the ribs, but I'm still rotated. And then untwisting. Inhale, rolling forward. Inhale, rolling up. Exhale, back to center. Let's take one more each side. Inhale, rotate. Exhale, rolling. Inhale, up. Exhale, center. And last one. And exhale, back to center. So a little more full body. The standing saw can be nice because sometimes the sitting one, your hip flexors grab a lot and are really tight, and go into the standing one, less of that happens. And also it just feels a little more full body going through all that range. All right, that's it for me. I'm going to pass it off.
Hey, everybody. So let's pick up with some of those ideas of creating a harmonious spine flexion and doing so on hands and knees. Let's bust a move. Come on down to the floor, just like you did a little bit earlier on hands and knees. And so I love that image of like the sun just starting to rise over the horizon, a little bit of lower back lift, a little bit of upper back lift, and then lightly looking toward your thighs. So we have neck flexion, upper back flexion, and lower back flexion. Let's take a few breaths here and then return back to neutral. So I can't believe that Collette resisted the bad joke of going into a little cat pose, which you could consider a little cat, a kitten. So whether you think about little cat or kitten, either way, finding that little bit of flexion. Now, whether cat or kitten, one of the properties of flexion is lower ribs end up one with or connected to your belly. And see if you can maintain that connection, knitting your ribs, as you move from little cat back to neutral. Remember how you worked on neutral spine. And see if you can maintain that rib connection, long neck. Ribs connected, neck long, as you go into a light extension. What in yoga we might call a cow pose. But make it a small cow pose. I'm resisting the temptation to make a dumb joke here. I'll let you do it internally. And now let's go back and forth between little cat and little cow. Inhale, little cat. Exhale, little cow. Now the key thing is keep your neck long, keep your ribs knit, so you get the good benefit between your shoulder blades. Inhale, kitten. Exhale, baby cow. I'm still resisting. Two more. Then back to normal neutral hands and knees. And then back to yoga pose, head down dog. Knees lifted, hips lifted. And to begin, let your head hang. So that wall that's back there behind you, take a peek of that wall back there, looking right between your shins. And notice how your lower ribs end up spontaneously connected to your belly. Couple more breaths here, maintaining that connection. And then with the next exhale, step forward, feet to your hands. Ending up in gorilla. Another chance to explore spine extension. Inhale, fold. And exhale, roll up. Not that dissimilar to the saw that you just did. And then arms down. All right. So in standing, because a lot of us, we have stiffness between the shoulder blades, and we have a habit of the head forward. More often than not, there's this jutting forward of the lower ribs. So that's going to be our starting point. Head them off at the pass. So from standing, intentionally slouch a little bit so that you can connect your lower ribs to your belly. Then keeping that knitting, then lift up through the crown of your head. Feel how your lower ribs want to shoot forward? Best you can, keeping your ribs knit, neck long. Then lightly draw your shoulders back. So the price of admission to free between your shoulder blades, knitting your ribs, and lengthening your neck. Let's take that to the floor. Exhale, arms up. Inhale, roll your spine down. Remember what that felt like to mobilize your spine? Exhale, gorilla, head forward. And then inhale, step back, head down dog again. Take a peek at that wall back behind you. Move your pelvi back toward that wall. That's when more than one person moves their pelvis. Now in this context, knit your ribs. Lengthen your neck by stretching the crown of your head toward your thumbs. Reach your head toward your thumbs. And then, just like baby cow pose, pan your vision forward toward your thumbs. Keep your neck long, keep your ribs knit. Alternate upward facing dog pose. 5, 4, looking slightly forward. 3, 2, 1. And then back down to ordinary everyday head down dog. Right between your shoulder blades, deep inhale. Exhale, step forward, gorilla. Remember that cue. Keep your neck long, keep your ribs knit. That applies here in gorilla. Get that movement right between the shoulder blades. Inhale, fold. Then keep that length. Exhale, up. And then arms down. So you're going to do that a handful of times. To get the freedom between your shoulder blades, to help strengthen the muscles that go right along your spine. Keep your neck long, keep your ribs knit, and we're going to go back and forth, doing a version of cat-cow in various orientations in space. Exhale, knit your ribs. Keep that knit as you inhale. Exhale, knit your ribs, thoracic extension. A knockoff of what we did, alternate up dog. Inhale, fold. Exhale, gorilla, a knockoff of cow pose. Inhale, step back. We'll take a couple breaths here. Not really cat, not really cow. Oh yeah, it's dog. And keep your neck long, keep your ribs knit. Exhale, move into alternate up dog, which is a lot like cow or gorilla. Strengthen the muscles that run along your spine. Couple breaths here. And then head down. Between your shoulder blades. Fill, open, expand with the in-breath. Exhale, step forward. Inhale, fold. Feel how long your spine is? So come up with that kind of length. Exhale up. From cat to cow. Inhale, arms down. Again, like that. We're alternating the spine. Exhale, spine extension. Inhale, spine flexion. Exhale, spine extension. Inhale, back. Neither flexion nor extension. Next exhale, extension. Let's pause here for a breath. Then back to head down dog for an in-breath. Exhale, gorilla. Inhale, fold. All the way up, roll up. Arms down. And like that. Exhale up, spine extension. Inhale, fold, spine flexion. Exhale, extension. Inhale, back, more or less neutral. Exhale, extension, alternate up dog. Hold here. Exhale, back. At the inhale, broaden your upper back. Now with the exhale, use that space in your upper back to generate thoracic extension, spine mobility. Inhale, fold. Exhale, roll up. There's a theme here, there's a pattern, isn't there? Let's do 2 more of these. So next one, next couple, fewer cues, more the experience in your body. Exhale up. Inhale, fold. Exhale, head forward. Inhale, step back. Exhale, spine extension. Inhale, head down. Exhale, gorilla. Inhale, fold. Exhale, roll up. Inhale, arms up. All right. So last one together quietly. Follow along with the breathing sounds. All right. To the floor, any old way. So let's end up on our bellies. All the way down on the floor. On your belly. And end up with your hands right adjacent to your ribs, right adjacent to your armpits. Then to continue this thread of strengthening the muscles, run along your spine. Lift your head a little bit up. Hover your nose and chin just a bit off the floor. Now to harmonize the development along the length of your spine, reach your toes back behind you. At the same time as you reach the crown of your head forward in front of you. So maintaining that harmonious elongation. With the next exhale, lift your legs a fraction of an inch off the floor. Now with the next exhale, just like we've been practicing, generate harmonious spine extension. So you look a little more in front of you. And holding here for a count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and come on down. Now to add a little bit more challenge, reach your arms back behind you, palms facing up toward the ceiling. Toes back, head forward. And with the next exhale, lift your torso, harmonious spine extension. Lightly lift your legs, hip extension, and breathe. And then come on down and bring your hands forward, hand on top of hand. Rest your forehead on your hands. And let your rib cage fully rest into the floor. And then keeping your chest heavy into the floor. Breathe deeply. And because the floor slightly restricts the movement of your chest, or maybe you're already feeling how the deep breathing opens your back ribs. So next inhale, right in between your shoulder blades. Then the next inhale, that same spot between your shoulder blades, but also a little bit higher up toward your neck. A lot of people report that feels kind of good. Let's do another couple deep breaths like that. So between your shoulder blades, way up high toward your neck. And bring your hands a little bit lower down beside your ribs, but not quite up at your armpits, a little bit more down toward your waistline. And then keeping your neck long, generate thoracic extension to lift your head. Then lift your belly up. And if you want more challenge, you could straighten your elbows and push up. Harmonious spine extension. If you want a whole heck of a lot more challenge, you could lift your knees up. And then knees back down. Come up to hands and knees. And then back to yoga pose, head down dog. 3 deep breaths. And then come on down to your knees. All right. So let's do a little bit more mobility in the spine with a particular focus between the shoulder blades. So start off with knees bent, feet flat upon the floor. And just like you did a little bit earlier, remember how Collette was talking about not slouching the spine, but creating length in the spine. Root your 2 sitting bones down to lift up through the crown of your head. And visualizing your spinal vertebra, rather than being compacted, falling into each other, putting space between adjacent vertebral bodies in your lower back, upper back, and your neck. I sometimes joke this is how I got to be 6'6", by putting more space between vertebral bodies. So now let's add a little bit of a twist to this. Bring your left foot forward in front of you. And let's keep this right foot right where it is for the time being. Right foot right where it is. And left hand comes across. Right arm behind. And maintaining that length, that lift. Now with all that space between adjacent vertebrae, then right between your shoulder blades, twist a little further. Then back in toward the middle. And back to the starting point. Knees bent, feet flat upon the floor. And now the other side. Right foot forward. Right arm comes across. Left hand behind, length. Sitting bones down, head up. All that space between adjacent vertebrae, facilitating rotating right between your shoulder blades. And breathe. And back in toward the middle. All right, so we're going to take a fork in the road. We're going to end up more or less the same place, but we're going to use slightly different pathways to get there. So left leg either stretched out in front, just like we did before, or if you want more challenge, take that left leg and fold it under. Now, whether your leg is folded under or stretched out straight ahead, left arm comes across, right hand behind, lift. Sitting bones down, head up. Now, good news, bad news. Which one first? Okay, if you insist, bad news first? Okay. A lot of you, your lower ribs are jutting forward. It creates the illusion of lifting your spine. It's really just a distortion of the spine. So remember how to knit the ribs. Then keep your spine aligned, then lift the crown of your head up. Then maintaining that spine integrity, then twist. So what was the good news? Well, if you're jutting your ribs forward, that was the good news. Excuse me, the bad news. But it meant there was a lot of room for improvement to enjoy more benefit. That's the good news. And back in toward the middle. I've been accused of being an optimist. Sitting bones down, head up. Could be leg straight ahead. Could be leg folded under, your choice. Right arm comes across, left hand behind. It's really slippery to think about lengthening the spine because a lot of us have the habit of throwing the lower ribs forward. Creates the perception of lift, but it really introduces a distortion. So keeping your ribs net, head up high, 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 then twist. Then back in toward the middle. Then take both feet straight out in front of you. Sitting bones down, head up. Now, for a lot of us, because of the hamstrings, the hips, it's kind of hard to create that lift in the spine. So best you can. Sitting bones down, lifting up. Breathe where your lungs are. Big deep inhale, fill your ribs. Exhale, arms up. Then spine flexion, full on cat pose. No kitten pose here, full on cat. Round your spine. Hands maybe come to your knees or maybe your shins. Maybe even to your feet. So to get the best benefit in your neck, look down between your knees and breathe. And then roll up. Right. Time flies when you're having fun. So before we part for the day, any comments, any questions? Collette is booking over to the computer monitor. Looks like it's kind of quiet out there today. So thanks so much for being with us here. We're here this week. Next week, I will be off to Colorado, and you will be in great hands with Hole and None. Hope you're well. Talk to you later. Be well.